Hello everyone. Do you know the first thing you need to know when thinking of buying a car? Well, guess what? Today you're in luck because I'll be telling you everything you need to know when buying a car, which can either be a used or new vehicle. I will also be talking about my personal experience when I bought a car a year and a half ago. So before I start the video, I just want to thank Annette for this video idea. And if you have any video ideas, you can definitely put them in the comments or send me an email and I'll gladly look at them and post those for future videos. For those people who don't know me, my name is Ryan Banks and my channel is about financial tips and tricks that you can bank on. And I post videos every second Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. I've also started posting on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Instagram Reels, so you can definitely follow me on those social media platforms to see my other content. So now that you're ready and you have made that decision that you really want to buy that car, well, the first thing I want you to do is create yourself a budget or set yourself a maximum amount of money to spend on the vehicle. So this will prevent for you to overspend and put yourself in a financial difficult position, and this will tell you which range and which types of cars that is within your price range. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is, yes, you may have enough money to buy the car itself, but do you have enough money in your monthly budget or in your expenses to pay for those operating expenses, which includes gas, regular oil changes, you've got some car insurance, car payments if you went financing route, and you can also have some random repairs that may show up if your car breaks down for whatever reason. So you need to think about these things before actually buying a car to see if you have enough money to be able to support that. So another thing to keep in mind is when buying a car, these types of expenses can vary depending if you buy a car versus if you buy a truck. So obviously it's more expensive to buy a truck because it uses more gas, for example. So now you know exactly how much money you have to spend. Now this comes the fun part where you get to pick the type of vehicle that you want. So this can either be a car, a truck, a SUV, or electrical vehicle. And later in the video I'll be referring to electrical vehicle as EV for short form. So this decision should be based off of your needs and not your wants. So if you do something that's based off your wants, it's definitely going to be a lot more expensive and probably not something that you need. So I'm just going to give you some quick examples to hopefully make your decision a little bit easier. So I'll just say for a car, if you're a student, you just go to point A to point B, then maybe a car is very more useful for you and more economic. If you like going to the outdoors, but you don't have a whole bunch of toys, then maybe an SUV is better for you. If you do have a truck, if you're a carpenter and you have a lot of toys, then maybe a truck is better for you to haul all that equipment. And if you live in a big city like Toronto or Vancouver, that has a lot of charging stations and you need to go short distances, then maybe an electrical vehicle is a good thing for you if it's within your price range, obviously. So I'll just tell you a little bit about for me in my experience. I definitely scratch off electrical vehicle and a car because in Timmins there's very harsh winters, so it's very cold. So first of all, the battery wouldn't last in an electrical vehicle. And if there has a lot of snow or big snowstorm, then a car wouldn't be able to go anywhere. So this has kind of limited my search to an SUV to a truck, and I also don't have any toys like a four-wheeler or a boat or snowmobile, so I definitely went to the SUV route. But these are the type of questions that you want to be thinking about and asking yourself and your spouse to see what type of vehicle that you want to buy. So now that you picked exactly the type of car that you want, now it's time to narrow down that search and kind of funnel in exactly and do some research. And one question you might be asking yourself is, well, do I want to buy a new or used vehicle? Well, maybe you've already made that decision, but the best piece of advice I have for you here is keep an open mind because you never know what's out there in the market. So this is probably the part where it's more work on your side where you have to do the research. So either it's going out to the dealerships and talking to different dealers and seeing what they have, or it's kind of looking online and seeing what different types of features that you like on a different car, and that's where you can narrow in to 2, 3, or 4 different cars that you want to narrow in. So when I looked at my kind of research phase when buying a car is I went down the strip of dealerships, so that's kind of more easier in Timmins because they're all within I guess 2 kilometers from each other. But I went to every dealership and I talked to a dealer from every dealership and test drove a car from each of those dealerships that I was most interested into. So that way I was able to kind of narrow my search and exactly, well, I like this types of features and I like how this type of car drives. So when I narrowed down my search, I had 2 new vehicles and 1 used vehicle to kind of narrow down and kind of going more into details after that and test drive them and stuff. So before we get into the final steps of what you need to do when finalizing buying your car, I just want to tell you the pros and cons of buying a new versus a used vehicle. So when buying a new vehicle, probably the best thing is it's very reliable because it's obviously brand new. The other thing is a dealership can offer you very low percentages on financing, which can be very good. So I've seen 0 to 6% interest rates, and this depends dealership to dealership. The other nice thing is new cars have warranty. So this means it will cover the parts and not the labor. So some people may think it covers all the costs, but that's definitely not the case. So it only covers the parts, which is obviously really good. And I've seen the warranty range between 3 to 5 years, depending again on the dealership. So on the other side though, a new car is obviously more expensive because it's obviously brand new. And like any car, a car is a depreciating asset. So that's definitely a con for all vehicles across the board. So this means a car or a vehicle loses its value over time, which means it loses its value. So these are some things that you need to consider when thinking of buying a new vehicle. So now let's jump in quickly into used vehicles. So this is probably the opposite of a new vehicle, but I still want to touch on a few points. So obviously the first thing is it's a lot less expensive because the asset has already decreased in value or depreciated. The other nice thing is you can go look it up on Auto Trader, which is a website that can tell you a specific model, a specific year, number of kilometers, and it will tell you specifically or approximately how much that vehicle is worth at that point in time. So this is a good way to say, okay, let's say I got a 2014 Honda Civic with 100,000 kilometers. It's worth $10,000, but the guy selling it is only selling it for $8,000. So it sounds like, oh, it's a really good deal. So there's always that aspect, which is good, but you also need to do your due diligence on the side to make sure that there's nothing wrong with a car. So now going in with the cons is you might inherit somebody else's problem. So they may know that there's some problems coming soon and they just want to get rid of the car, or they know that there's some issues and they don't want to repair it, so they're just selling it. So you may need to do some repairs right up front before you're going to be able to drive. The other thing too is, I guess, financing. So sometimes you buy a used car off of someone and not specifically a dealership. So when that's the case, there's not really financing besides you buying it in cash or getting yourself a line of credit. And usually those line of credits have a higher interest rate than those from the dealership. So these are just a couple of little things to know when buying a used vehicle. Now that you know specifically which car that you want to buy, or kind of silo in between 1 or 2 vehicles, which can either be a new or used vehicle, now the next step or the final steps is kind of negotiating and the financing part of things. So when negotiating, you definitely don't want to tell the dealership that you're really interested, because they're going to be less likely to negotiate with you. Because if they know that you really want it, you're probably going to give in before they will. The other thing that you need to think about is kind of the market and where it's at right now. So unfortunately right now there's a shortage of cars, which means if you don't really seem interested or you don't want to buy a car, the dealership won't really mind because it probably has 2 or 3 other buyers lined up, just the way the market is. So you may need to act a little bit quicker right now to buy that vehicle, but if you do your research properly, and whenever you feel ready on buying that car, then you probably have enough knowledge to know exactly what's a good price at that point in time to buy that car. So now going to financing. I've seen some people finance their cars or their vehicles for over 5 years. To me, this makes no sense because you're paying a lot more interest over time on a depreciating asset, and the car usually needs some repairs 4 to 5 years starting when it's a brand new car. So if, let's say in 4 years time, you need to change the brake pads, for example, well, you're still paying the monthly expenses of those car payments, and on top of that, for some repairs. If it's within or without warranty, it depends, but if it's not within warranty, then it could get very expensive very quickly. So I'm just gonna tell you a little bit kind of my backstory of what I did when financing for my car. So when I went to the dealership and I knew exactly which one I wanted, I looked at their financing options, and they had 0% for 4 years, or they had 0.99% or around 1% for 5 years. So because of time value of money, and at that point in time, inflation was still very low, but I said, well, I can invest that extra bit of money that I'm saving every month because my payments are lower at 5 years compared to 4 years. I can put that towards investments and make money that way. And I think it was about $1,200 of interest I'd be paying for the next 5 years. And I think I could make that with my investments throughout that period of time. So with that being said, let's say it was 4%, or sorry, 0% for 4 years and 5% for 5 years, then I'd probably pick 4 years. Because you need to remember, it's a depreciating asset, and you don't want to be paying that for a long period of time on an asset that's depreciating on you. So these are some things that you need to think about when negotiating and also financing. And I think the financing part is probably one of the most important parts, because you don't want to put yourself in a financial difficult situation in 4 or 5 years time. To conclude the video, here are some key takeaways I want you to bring home with you when thinking buying a car. So number 1, don't finance your car more than 5 years. Number 2, always keep an open mind when buying a vehicle, because you never know what's out there. And number 3, never buy a car based off of your wants, and always based off of your needs. So I want you to comment on this video to see exactly the different things that you do when buying a vehicle, and you guys can help each other out within the comments. So I just want to thank you for watching the video, and I hope you have a great day.